The ringing of bells in temples, the call to prayer from mosques, and the ardors in gurdwaras, all at the same time, were once symbols of peace. But politics has divided them. August 14, 1947, was the darkest day in the history of the subcontinent. It drew a bloody line across this region. Millions of people were killed, families were torn apart, and children searched for their mothers. Even 78 years later, the effects still impact people's lives. Sultan Bahu and Bhagat Kabir gaze at each other across an iron fence. Moinuddin Chishti and Haji Ali remain where they are, and Baba Guru Nanak continues to watch over his pilgrims here. In the villages of Punjab and the streets of Bengal, Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs weren't just neighbors, they were friends. Children played together in courtyards, and elders told stories under the shade of old trees. Bonds of trust and affection ran deep, often lasting for generations. They celebrated each other's festivals, shared meals, and supported one another through joy and sorrow. During both Eid and Diwali, homes filled with the aroma of biryani and the sweetness of laddus as families opened their doors to friends of every faith. Religion was just one part of their identity. People were first and foremost Punjabi, Bengali, or Sindhi. Their regional songs, dances, and dialects shaped their sense of belonging far more than any religious labels. Sufi shrines welcomed everyone, and local folklore united communities. Folk tales and music echoed through fields and rivers, carrying messages of unity and love. There were disagreements, but they were resolved within the community, rarely escalating. Village councils or panchayats brought people together to find solutions, prioritizing harmony over conflict. The idea of Hindus and Muslims being two separate nations was foreign to most people. For them, identity was layered and complex, not defined by a single line or label. Their lives proved that coexistence was possible. Every shared laugh, every joint celebration, was a testament to the strength of their unity. This world, built on shared culture and trust, was about to be shattered. The drawing of borders threatened to break the delicate threads that held these communities together. Survivors of the partition remember this era with great longing. Their voices tremble with emotion as they recall a time when unity was not just an ideal, but a lived reality. They remember the taste of a friend's food, the blending of the call to prayer and temple bells, and the safety of mixed neighborhoods. These memories are vivid, etched in their hearts as symbols of what once was. These memories are not just nostalgia. They are reminders that division was not inevitable. They are proof that harmony was possible, and it can be imagined again. What was lost was a world where difference was woven into the fabric of everyday life. A tapestry of togetherness, rich with color, culture, and compassion. The British ruled India by dividing it, using a trick that deeply wounded the country's fabric. Their goal wasn't just to govern, but to control, to make sure no single group could unite against them. They made community differences worse, turning them into powerful political weapons. By focusing on what separated people, the British made sure that unity could never be achieved. The colonial census strictly divided people by religion and caste, making personal identity a matter of state policy and politics. These categories, which used to be flexible, now became fixed and unchangeable. Seats in councils and government jobs were given out based on these made-up categories, which caused competition, jealousy, and mistrust among communities that had lived together for centuries. The Partition of Bengal in 1905 split the province along religious lines, sparking huge protests and planting the dangerous idea that communities should be separated based on religion. Separate voting areas were created, making sure that politics would be based on religious identity, not on shared hopes or unity. This system made the split between neighbors even deeper. Leaders, seeing the new reality, started organizing communities as voting blocks, which made the division even worse and turned politics into a game of numbers and identity. The British claimed to keep the peace, but their policies often fueled the fires of division, making tensions worse instead of better. The small differences between communities now turned into conflicts that couldn't be solved, leading to violence and unrest. The seeds of separation, carefully planted by the British Raj through policy and propaganda, were now starting to take root in everyday life. Suspicion and distrust replaced old bonds of friendship and shared history, as invisible walls went up between neighbors. The foundation for partition was being laid, one policy at a time, as the British bureaucracy carefully planned the future of a divided land. The results would be terrible. Millions of people left without homes, families torn apart, and a legacy of pain that would echo for generations. As freedom got closer, India's leaders became divided. The Congress Party, led by Gandhi and Nehru, dreamed of a united, secular India. Gandhi promoted Hindu-Muslim unity. Nehru wanted to keep religion out of politics. But Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the Muslim League feared that Muslims would be pushed aside in a Hindu-majority India. Jinnah's two-nation theory said that Hindus and Muslims were two different nations. In the 1940 Lahore Resolution, the demand for Pakistan became official. After this, all that was left was failed talks and deep mistrust. The Congress Party felt the partition was like a betrayal. Gandhi appealed for unity, but the situation had gotten bad. The failure of the cabinet mission plan made the division certain. It was hard to bring the leaders' ideas together. Partition was now going to happen for sure. The job of drawing the border was given to Sir Cyril Radcliffe, a British lawyer who didn't know much about India. He had only 5 weeks to split a whole subcontinent using old maps and bad information. The Radcliffe line cut through Punjab and Bengal, splitting villages, families, and resources. This was done quickly and in secret. The final border was announced 2 days after independence. Millions of people didn't know which country they belonged to when violence broke out. The British left, leaving chaos behind. The border wasn't just a line, it was a wound made in a hurry. Its effects would be felt for many years to come. The new border caused a huge movement of people, one of the biggest and most painful movements of people in human history. In just a few weeks, whole communities were uprooted, their lives changed forever by a line drawn on a map. Millions of people left their ancestral homes, taking with them whatever they could carry, bundles of clothes, a few pots, and memories of the lives they left behind. This migration was chaotic and uncertain. Hindus and Sikhs moved east to India, while Muslims moved west to Pakistan. Families were torn apart, friends became strangers overnight, and neighbors were forced to opposite sides of a new border. Roads turned into rivers of helpless people stretching for miles, men, women, and children traveling on foot, by train, and in bullock carts. Every available path was packed with people looking for safety and a new start. Many thought they would return soon, leaving food on stoves, doors open, and burying valuables in the ground, hoping to come back. But for most, there was no return, only loss and longing. The journey was dangerous. Hunger, sickness, and violence claimed countless lives along the way. Families were separated, and many never saw their loved ones again. Ghost trains arrived at stations, filled with dead bodies, a terrible sign of the brutal attacks that happened along the way. The horror of these journeys left scars that would last for generations. Survivors remember the terror, sadness, and confusion of those days. Their stories are full of loss, but also of strength and the will to live. Cities like Lahore and Delhi changed overnight, their streets filled with refugees. Temporary camps popped up, and the cities struggled to handle this sudden change. Refugees arrived with only trauma and loss, forced to rebuild their lives from scratch in unfamiliar places, often among strangers. In just a few months, the social fabric fell apart. Communities that had lived together for centuries were suddenly divided, and trust was broken. The scale of suffering is almost impossible to imagine. Millions were traumatized, children were orphaned, and entire generations were affected by the pain of being displaced. Partition was a huge breakdown of a shared way of life, a moment when centuries of living together turned into fear, doubt, and sorrow. Along with people moving, there was also terrible group violence, especially in Punjab and Bengal. Neighbors became enemies, mobs robbed, burned, and killed. The goal of the violence was to cleanse communities. There were mass killings on both sides. Women suffered the most. They were kidnapped, raped, forced to change their religion, and killed. Many families killed their own loved ones to avoid dishonor. These stories were kept quiet for decades. Villages were destroyed, fields were filled with dead bodies, and wells were filled with bodies. The government was powerless, officials were often involved. This wasn't a war between armies, but a fight of neighbor against neighbor. The pain and hate from this time still make relationships bad today. The suffering, especially of women, remains a hidden scar. Partition left the future of over 500 princely states uncertain. Most joined India or Pakistan smoothly, but Kashmir's decision was tricky. A state with mostly Muslims but ruled by a Hindu king, Kashmir's unsureness led to an invasion by forces backed by Pakistan. The king joined India in exchange for military help, which started the first war between India and Pakistan. The war ended with Kashmir being split by a ceasefire line, which is now called the Line of Control. India promised a vote by the people, but it never happened. Kashmir remains the most dangerous leftover from the partition. It has caused wars, uprisings, and endless suffering for the people of Kashmir. Both nations claim it. People are stuck in the middle. The wound of Kashmir is still open. The Radcliffe Line didn't just divide land, it tore families apart. In all that chaos, parents lost children, siblings got separated, and some folks made heartbreaking choices just to save their lives. Many never saw each other again. That pain lasted for generations. Strict borders and hateful politics kept families apart for decades. Stories of lost homes and relatives became part of family history, shaping who they were. Social media has made some amazing reunions possible, but most goodbyes were forever. The deepest wounds of partition are often the most personal. The pain of partition still shapes India and Pakistan today. Wars, the Kashmir conflict, and the race for nuclear weapons all came from the deep, unsettled wounds of partition. The border is still heavily guarded, and mistrust and anger remain. In both countries, politicians use the story of partition to gain power, which only makes the division worse. Even so, there are people who build bridges, artists, activists, and everyday folks who want peace. Projects that record people's stories are working fast to save the tales of those who lived through it, so we don't forget the human cost. Partition warns us about the dangers of division, but it also shows us how strong and hopeful people can be. The wounds are still there, but remembering and connecting is the way to heal. The future depends on whether we choose hate or our shared history. The story of partition isn't just about pain, it's also about the lasting hope for coming together.